Hi everyone and welcome to session 19 of Felix's Perfect Video Answers, and today we're going to focus on brainstorming. Again, we're picking a very unusual topics in brainstorming, things that I think will be technically challenging to people because they don't intuitively think about these topics. It's quite easy to brainstorm profitability, cost structures, volume structures, revenue structures, even fixed asset bases, variable costs, fixed costs. But as soon as we start removing those intuitive elements, candidates struggle, and that's why we've put in this brainstorming session. So what I want you to do here is pay careful attention to the logic we apply to build a structure. As always, brainstorming is all about the way you define things. Poor definitions, or in many cases subscribers even forget to define things. Poor definitions, or when something looks obvious, it is never obvious. So don't ever say, well, this is obvious. If it's obvious and you ignore it, then by default you've ignored your definition. So go back and take the time to think through the definition. As always, when you are practicing this, it's not enough to take 5 minutes to write out your perfect structure and then speak it through, because that's not how the way cases are done. You've got to spend maybe 5 to 10 seconds thinking about this and then talking through it as you're building it in your head, and you've got to record that. The recording is more important than the written solution. As always, I'll play the role of the aspiring candidate here. So Michael, let's look at in a previous case where the Mozambican government allowed clinical trials to take place in Mozambique. I want you to brainstorm why the government of Mozambique would have allowed the trials to take place. Wow, that's an interesting question. I never really thought about that. So let's talk it through, right? I think that when you say allow, it implies the government had a choice. And if it had a choice, it was not really forced to accept the trials, right? Therefore, in the government's mind, we must assume that, or we can assume that the benefits outweigh the costs from their perspective, and then therefore let's examine the benefits, because clearly there were some inherent benefits that they saw of this, and because of the benefits they saw, they allowed the trial to go ahead. So I think the benefits can be broadly broken into 3 categories. There's direct health benefits because it's a clinical trial. There's always financial benefits because this is ultimately a business. And then I think there's also what I'd call prestige benefits of running this elite clinical trial for one of the world's most prestigious Fortune 500 companies. And let's look at health, right? I don't think the government is going to allow this to go ahead unless there's some health benefit. So for me, when it may not be the most important criteria, it's the first thing they would look at. So I think that it's possible that the first thing is maybe this drug was designed for the Mozambican strain of the disease, and if it was designed for the Mozambican strain of the disease, there's a greater probability of success and even lower setup costs. I think the government looked at that and said that, okay, if it's designed for our strain of the disease, let's let it go ahead. There's more benefit we could get here. Even if it wasn't designed for the Mozambican strain, the mere fact that it's running in Mozambique first means that Mozambican citizens have access to the latest malaria medication. So I think those are the 2 main drivers for health. Financial reasons is obviously Pfizer is paying for the trials. Pfizer is going to be setting up infrastructure. And you can think about this as an indirect increase in the health budget of the government of Mozambique. If they didn't have money to allocate to malaria treatment, the company Pfizer is going to be sort of making an add-on to their budget. And then the other indirect financial income that they get is tax income, because Pfizer is going to be setting up operations. They may even be generating some kind of revenue. I'm not sure of this, but I'm pretty sure that they would be taxed somehow for whatever they are doing here. But that could be wrong. But definitely the change to the budget is an obvious reason why they would go ahead with this. And let's look at the final area, prestige, right? The final area, the third and final area why the government would do this. I think that it leads to foreign direct investment, firstly, because it's expensive to run clinical trials, and it's an advertisement. Linked to this, but I think slightly different, is that if Mozambique, the government of Mozambique showed they could effectively work with a Fortune 100 pharmaceutical company, it could lead to more clinical trials for the government of Mozambique, and therefore more advertisement and more foreign direct investment. So that area of prestige is almost a circular reference, a circle, as opposed to being, directly mutually exclusive. So I think definitely health is important. There are financial benefits and there are prestige benefits which lead to health benefits and financial benefits. Now I'm okay to break these down even further if you would like me to, or we could stop there, we can have a discussion. So let's just do a timeout here, right? Now notice how the definition played such an important role. I spent a lot of time thinking about the word allowed means. It meant that they weren't, obligated to do anything. Why would they choose something they were not obligated to do? Well, clearly the benefits must have outweighed the costs, right? and we need to examine those benefits. So it's very important that as a subscriber and as a candidate that you use the approach. I see a lot of people that go through even the firm's consulting core coaching program. They take the definitions for granted. Whenever you take something for granted, you are ignoring it, and whenever you're ignoring something, you're basically setting yourself up for a lot of trouble, I think. So never ignore anything. Go through it very methodically and very carefully, and you will do fine. The approach is not any different from any other brainstorming. Definition, drivers of the definition, prioritize the drivers, go through the prioritized driver, and just repeat the process of prioritizing, breaking down, until you get to the third or fourth level and you start giving me your reasons in terms of how to fix things. Right? Very important way to do this. Communication is everything. It's not about the answer you have, it's about the way you communicate it. And at this level, we're now in session 19. It's all about the communication because it's assumed you know the underlying technique. If you don't know the underlying techniques, then don't continue going through the perfect answer videos. Go back to the sessions and learn how to do them correctly. Right? You're not going to get better by listening to the perfect answer videos, because in the perfect answer videos, we don't talk through the underlying mechanics of how we solve things, because it's not necessary for the perfect answer. In the perfect answer, you don't explain everything to the interviewer. You explain just enough for him to understand your thought process. So be very wary of that.